Well, bit of a rocky one on the stock market today, but not too unexpected after we saw some nice green. But I want to go through a few stocks today. First of all, I want to look at CMC, Cielo Waste Solutions, because I didn't mention it on my Sunday stocks video, and it definitely should be in there. So I want to go through some things there. I also want to look at MVMD, what's kind of happening there. We had a nice, massive run coming back up to now. Well, we came all the way up to that 0.78 level, and now we're kind of back down to that 0.6. So what am I doing? We're just going to kind of look at the stock there, see what's going on. And then FCEL as well had earnings today coming out. So I want to go through their earnings a little bit, why they came down. It does make sense, and just some sort of things. And just some of the things to look out for in the future for FCEL here as well. So we'll start by looking at CMC here. Yes, we've got some nice developments that have kind of come to fruition here. And, we have the kind of secured land purchase of the Alberta facility for Cielo, right? And it's all good, but still there's a lot to be done until we kind of hit that point, right? The new facility that's going to be built and that's being kind of financed currently is through debt financing, and it has to be because Cielo right now has very low cash, very high cash burn, and without financing through debt or something along those lines, they just wouldn't be able to do it at all. But still, even with that, yes, their balance sheet isn't great right now. Cash flow is obviously a similar situation to their balance sheet, but regardless of that, it really all comes down to right now the potential of this company and where we might be headed. And because we don't have any sales yet. We don't kind of know what the costs are going to look like for Cielo once we do kind of see some revenue start to come in, once we do get that desulfurization, right? And all these are kind of catalysts that we are expecting moving forward, and the price will definitely move off of that. But what is it going to look like, right? And that's why it's a risky stock. But I am bullish, and I'll tell you guys why. First of all, there's a lot of catalysts coming up with desulfurization, with potential partners coming up, and new building of facilities, right? All this kind of is going to be coming together hopefully in the next year, let's say, and from that we will see the price move a lot. Now the other nice thing to see, right, if we go over to the stock price, is we've just been consolidating here for so long, right? I mean, this was after kind of the Bloomberg report and all those other kind of things, but we haven't really fallen since that, right? We've been staying around this kind of dollar to 0.8 level, let's say, and so that is nice to see that we're not dropping from that. We even had this kind of nice run after that short report came out. So all good things here. And I still have most of my shares here, about just over 2/3 of what I initially had. And I sold the rest for a profit because I just wasn't sure. And there is some issues with the financials statements there. But again, I am still very bullish on CMC. I do like the stock, and I think we're going to see some good things come out of here. Would I buy around the 0.91 level right now? I'm not sure I would. I would maybe wait for us to kind of hit close to this bottom, let's say around that 0.7 level. You can kind of see the two kind of trend lines I've drawn here, resistance, support, right? We're staying in between this box here, and that's good. So it could be good to kind of wait till here. We'll see what happens with this kind of resistance or support level right here. Do we bounce off of this, or do we potentially double bounce and come back down more, right? So one to watch out for. Not sure if I would buy right at the 0.91 level now, because see, the other thing is we have to wait for this news to come out. We don't know when it's going to come out. It could be 6 months from now, or it could be 1 month from now. But without any real substantial news where we can start realizing the revenue potential, etc., I think we're going to stay around this level for a while. But again, this consolidation here is great to see, and the fact we're not really jumping anywhere below this level is a bullish sign, in my opinion. So that's CMC in a nutshell there. Now, moving on to MVMD, we saw a nice little run Monday and Tuesday there, up about 77%, falling back down though yesterday and today to around that 0.6 level. Now, why did we see a run? What's going on here? Well, first of all, if we take a look at kind of the Webull chart here, this is the run we had right here over the past few days and now coming back down. Could potentially be a dead cat bounce, but honestly, I think I don't see us really ever going below this 0.35 level. I did a whole video kind of on explaining the RTO shares and the warrants and kind of the downward pressure we've seen with the short report, etc. there. But, you know, this resistance we have from all the way back here, it's no wonder that we jump off of this, right? We did come below here, but that's really oversold territory there. So coming back up and we'll kind of see what happens here. I think right now would be a great time for MVMD to release some news on what's going on. They haven't kind of done that yet, and they haven't kind of done anything since their Q&A, right? And so that does kind of hurt the stock, and these news reports really are only temporary up until we kind of get or create a temporary raise in the stock price, up until we kind of get some really substantial news on this cold chain, which we know the results are in, but the FDA still wants to kind of have a collaboration agreement there. And so they're still working on releasing those results to their best ability there. And we know there's some partnerships coming up now. Again, we don't know how big those are, and we'll have to wait and see. And that's part of the reason why MVMD can be so risky here. We know they've got great tech. We know what they're doing is innovative and new, and it's could potentially change the world, but the key word there is potentially, right? We don't know yet, and it's still going to be a ways down the road until we kind of see some of this really significant news. But I think some of the cancer stuff that's coming out here soon as well. Apparently there's some data coming out, as Dennis has mentioned, on some of this cancer research and what ivermectin can do there. So again, that I think alone should definitely have a positive effect on the stock price. As for, you know, a big kind of support level here, we do have this kind of 0.5 level, which we can see if we take a look at, you know, I drew these a while back here, but we have this falling wedge. We had huge resistance around this 0.5. So once we hit above that, we had that huge run, right? And it does make sense, and we'll see. But again, you know, this big resistance, but I don't even know if we're going to fall here. This is kind of acting as quite a bit of this is support, and this kind of right here at the 0.6 level is acting as decent support here. So yeah, good things going on in MVMD. I'm excited for what they have to bring for us, because I think it is very good news. Again, though, with these projects going on in Bangladesh right now, we'll have to see kind of what the realized revenues from those are, because there's kind of this idea that they may just be pilot projects, so we might not realize as much revenue from that. But who knows? Even pilot projects, right, when you're dealing in billions, as Dennis says, then you know, even pilot projects can have a big effect on the stock price. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. Now, moving into FCEL, I have their kind of news report from their financials up here, and there's no surprise we kind of had this drop of 10% today, right? We'll just quickly take a look at that. So we had this big run off of basically no news here, off of, you know, potentially good earnings. People are expecting good earnings. So we came up also in line with kind of the run we had Monday, Tuesday, right? And then here we are Wednesday and Thursday, right? And this is when the financials came out. And so there's no real surprise we came down here, because we'll read through some of the financials here and now. And you know, start off, we have lower revenues compared to 2020. Gross loss instead of a gross profit. Loss from operations are about double, right? Backlog remains essentially the same here, going down 0.02 billion, so 200,000 only, right? So huge backlog there still, and hopefully they can bring this down coming up, and that's kind of one of the big things here with FCEL, right? They're working with ExxonMobil here, and they're really 2023 is where they really want to go to large scale production once they've kind of realized the potential of all this, of the fuel cells, and really of that carbon capture too, right? That's so important, that carbon capture. And that's what I've said is one of the biggest reasons why I like FCEL so much is getting into that carbon capture, because that's going to be a big kind of industry moving forward here. Going off that, we have Oxy, right, doing that as well. Oxy Petroleum, they're going into carbon capture there too. And again, there are quite a few companies doing this, but none really to the scale that I think Oxy Petroleum and Fuel Cell Energy are going to be able to provide. And the only reason Fuel Cell is able to do that is because they work with ExxonMobil, right? And so that's really where the big money is going to be. But also this backlog should be able to kind of come down once they move to that medium scale and that kind of larger scale production there. So stay tuned for that. Watch out for that. In the near term, we probably won't see much change here on this backlog. So we'll see. Now, this purchase agreement for 2.8 megawatts, it's great as well. But again, we're just adding to the backlog here. FCEL's working on these projects, but they really need to kind of move along here. But that's just the stage they're at right now. They're not really at this medium scale yet. They're still on this small scale. If you look back at one of the videos I did quite a while ago, it goes into kind of FCEL's entire financial results, and I go through like at the stage we're at right now, and the report also kind of goes through when they are likely to hit that medium scale and that large scale production. And it's not for kind of another year, and then moving into mid scale, and then another year moving into that full scale. So still good things to come. I'm extremely bullish on FCEL here. No real surprise that we came down on these financials though. Looking at FCEL's financial statements here, starting with the balance sheet, looking good, right? We've got a lot of cash. 139 million compared to 149 million. Sure, went down a bit, but still a good amount, right? Total assets still about the same here. Liabilities, really nothing here, right? Long-term liabilities here coming down quite a bit. So they've used some of that cash really to bring down their long-term liabilities, which is nice. They've also got enough cash here to kind of cover any liabilities they need, especially these current liabilities of 56 million. So there's no worries here. Balance sheet is looking healthy and good, which is what we want to see. Moving on to the comprehensive loss here, statement of comprehensive loss. Not too much going on here. As we already know, revenues kind of went down. Cost of revenue staying about the same, but cost of revenues and generation here going up quite a bit. Now, this doesn't really align with the kind of increase in generation revenues we're seeing here at about 6 million compared to 4 million. So there's something else going on there. Again, you can find that in the notes if you look at the actual financial statements, which we're not going to do here. This is just kind of the press release from that. But these are obviously the correct financial statements here. And other than that, not too much going on. Again, we already know we've got more of a net loss here, etc. But again, net loss per share here, not changed too much from these 3 months ended. But now what's interesting to notice, from the 6 months ended, we have had quite a bit of change, meaning that a lot of this is actually coming from the first quarter financial results, not the second quarter financial results. Either way, it definitely warrants the decrease in share price here. These are the 6 months ended. Again, we see kind of a similar picture to the 3 months, and even a little bit worse though here, like I was just saying. So again, nothing really to be too worried about for the long term, as I just kind of explained all the things happening here in FCEL, especially that carbon capture again, and that's really it here. But big swings in this one, big swings in MVMD. It's natural. They're kind of smaller, riskier cap, riskier stocks. But obviously you can get those big gains from that. And I think FCEL, you can really take advantage of that carbon capture they're working on for the future, which I don't think a lot of people are kind of realizing how big this carbon capture is going to be moving forward. And that's where you can really take advantage right now. We have kind of, for FCEL, been consolidating around this $10 level. We could always drop a little further. I think a very good price to get in here would be that kind of $8.50 level, but I don't know if we're going to see that price again. It kind of depends on what happens with inflation expectations as well. The other thing to note about that, and the reason why we're not kind of seeing FCEL at the $8 level anymore, is because inflation expectations have gotten better for the future. aka we won't see as much inflation as people kind of thought in April, right? In March, kind of in March, but more April, May, right? Is where people really were worried about these inflation expectations, but now we're already seeing those come back down. And I think that's kind of part of the reason why we're already seeing a little bit of run in all stocks, right? Coming back up from the really, really lows that we saw kind of mid-May. But we are again seeing the market's a little bit more rocky now. But consolidating, right? So we'll see. Well, you know, it's pretty much impossible to determine the short term, and that's why I love to place limit orders too, right? Just place a limit, forget about it. If your limit hits for a buy, if your limit hits for a sell, then it's done, and you don't have to think about it in the time, right? I rarely these days try and place any market orders, because it just, there's too much emotion when you're trading with market orders. And that's because, you know, you see the stock at a price and you're like, oh yeah, but I can get, you know, 0.1 less or 0.1 less. Oh, I'll just wait for it to come down a little bit more. And then it starts going up, right? And then you're like, oh, okay, I need to buy right now. And you buy right now, and then it ends up coming down, right? And you would have been better off had you just placed a limit on that, not thought about it. It's less stressful, right? And so that's kind of also a big thing that I wanted to mention, is just place limit orders on your trades, forget about them, and just, if it executes, it executes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. There's always going to be another option for you to put your money into, right? You don't need to be kind of too concerned about one stock. If you miss out on that opportunity, there's 1,000 more opportunities where you can make the same gains on, right? You just have to find those stocks. So that's going to do it for the video today, guys. I hope you liked it. If you did, please like, subscribe, and leave me a comment as always. And other than that, I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you guys on Monday.